news, sports.
We've proved the business need.
The backbone of a lot of news agencies.
Make this go via API.
Somebody or thing must join everything up.
We have a technology solution.
It's a RESTful API.
Mark Himsley from the BBC.
When I walked in, you thought, there's a winner, didn't you?
And Nick Brandon from Arqiva.
If you'd like to try it out.
It does have some issues with it, so we've got to refine those.
To watch more of these episodes, press subscribe on YouTube now.
Dan is here to talk all about it.
Let's do a quick recap of the problem that we are trying to solve. So let's take a typical event like Prime Minister's Question Time. The event information, the date, time source, tech specs are abstracted from the technical source and those parameters. Further abstracted from the content information, the who, what, where, and the why. And of course, somebody or thing must join everything up. Book your downlink, your BT tower lines, your fiber lines, book your media asset management, internal resources, and then give it a name. And then you've got to sync up all that content information with the recorded event. As information changes, you've got to do it all again. So many opportunities for error, and you've got to fix it, and that takes time. So there must be a better way. The solution, a single API describing all event information related to an event that is sufficiently expressive to allow changes to be accommodated as an event develops. We need a schema. We found one with Events ML and News ML, translated to Nin.js, which is news in JSON, from the IPTC. We'll talk about that in just one sec. We will use RESTful API using OpenAPI. We're going to focus on news first. We'll do sports next, and then entertainment later. Now, Ian Young from PA Media is the chair of the Nin.js working group. He can't be with us, but he has recorded this video.
Hi everyone, my name is Ian Young. I'm the chair of the Nin.js working group at IPTC. That stands for News in JSON. I'm not able to be there in person, unfortunately, so this is a Oscars-like speech remotely, but I wanted to give you a little introduction to who IPTC are, what the News in JSON working group do, and how we've been involved with DPP recently at the DPP LPX hackathon, where we've been trying out the use of this schema with some of the DPP partners. So the IPTC is a global technical standards body of the news media industry, established back in 1965. It's open, non-partisan, non-political, and it's dedicated to promoting interoperable standards and best practices in the news and media industry. It's the creator of standards such as photo metadata, which you probably will have seen in Photoshop and so on, as well as Video Metadata Hub, NewsML, which is kind of the backbone of a lot of news agencies, Nin.js, becoming more so, Events ML and Sports ML, as well as Rights ML. We conduct events, standards, and software development. We also partner with a lot of other bodies such as DPP, advocacy, and knowledge sharing and collaboration. As you can see, we've got quite a few well-known members here, over 70 members in total. All of these are active participants as well. You'll find them in all the working groups developing the standards. Specifically on News in JSON, it was built for use in modern applications, JSON databases and APIs. It can also be converted in the second version to protobufs and CBOR. It's based on the NewsML G2 data model, which we refer to as the NAR or news architecture, but it's got some simplifications and deliberate omissions to make it an easier adoption standard, as well as being lightweight. It was released in 2015 and it's used by hundreds of news organizations globally. Nin.js has a number of properties broken down into different types. As you can see here, we've got administrative, rights, editorial, metadata, renditions, and associations. There's a user guide for Ninja.js that you can find if you search online, which really breaks down the detail on all these sections. So we've been working with DPP and the working group to create the 2.2 draft version, and this involves covering events and the planning of the coverage of events, as well as extending the existing news item, we call it, which is the document which represents a piece of coverage, to allow us to convey video streaming information. Planning objects and planned coverage, both of those, as I say, describe the coverage of the event, and there's a relationship between these. So we have the event, which is a standalone document which represents the real world event itself, such as a press conference, and then the planned coverage is the agency's planned coverage of the real world event, so that's linked by association to the event. And then we also have the actual coverage, which might be a video stream, or it might be textual content or images, and they're linked to the planned coverage. And here you can see these, the relationship between these here in this little diagram. And that was it from the general introduction. How this was applied at the hackathon. We published a 2.2 draft schema, which was then interpreted by Reuters and Arqiva, who both implemented their own APIs. Arqiva's was a REST API, Reuters GraphQL, so it's usable in both scenarios. We then had a range of different teams all using the APIs and therefore using the schema to exchange video stream data between provider and consumer, coming up with different innovative use cases, as well as looking for possible gaps in the schema and where we could add value in the future.
The gamut of this is pretty wide. There's lots of different systems that will use this, and in lots of different places. So how do we see it? We saw 3 system roles: a contributor, someone who's providing live video, ENG team, something like that; a distributor, which is actually publishing the API, stores the event information; and then a consumer who says, I now want to receive that one. And this was our kind of vision that we gave to the teams. There were 10 of them. And we provided a reference implementation for them to send and receive event information. And we were encouraging them as well to actually, many had formed together in teams, or they had just been one company, but we were also trying to encourage them all to exchange using that reference implementation between them.
So the API, it's as Dan noted, it's a RESTful API with a sort of create, update, delete type operation. So if you imagine a database record which you can create and delete and update, it's a basic type interface to do those 4 operations. We access it via API keys. You get all the standard sort of API gateway, rate limiting, all of that. And we fully support the Ninja.js specification. So if you'd like to try it out, like the people on the hackathon, drop an email to this address, devopsupport.com. I can give you at arqiva.com. I can give you a key. I can give you a sort of handbook that we have for using the API. And yeah, give it a go. We use Swagger Hub, so it's an open API spec. We'll give you all this information, so you get all the endpoints. You can also call each of the endpoints to try it out. What I would say is great about, well, there are many things that are great about this API, but bear in mind this is just a sort of prototype. It's very, very simple. If you have any suggestions, then send them in. That would be great to receive those. But we are, as Dan says, we're allowing external contribution and then consumption. So you've got both ends of the deal there.
These are all the participants. We had lots of really good representation from the industry. I would say we had probably about 60, 70 people at Reuters HQ, which is where we held this a couple of Mondays ago. And like any good hackathon and teams, there was a bit of a competition. We had 4 judges who judged against different criteria, and the winners were code hackers from WolfTech and the BBC. And pleased to say that we have Mark here who can talk to their implementation.
Hello. When I walked in, you all thought there's a winner, didn't you? I can say.
Nice change.
Yeah. So, WolfTech and BBC, we work together. WolfTech, we have some developers who do a load of work in WolfTech for us. We had never met before we met ourselves at Reuters. It was really good to meet them. We had a quick chat on Slack before that, but that was it. What we wanted to do was to work together and be winners, and that's what we were. What did we do? So I have to say, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by WolfTech. There were 2 WolfTech developers who were just fantastic, and there was four BBC people. 2 of us were architects, so you know what architects do. We nudge people in the right direction, and then we win. Okay, architects, winners. Basically, the WolfTech team did a lot of work. They made stuff that got a list of events. So they populated some data from a list of events from the Arqiva REST CRUD API. They put data inside their web app. You could select an item, and it would get more information about that. You could turn it into a WolfTech story, and from that point on, you could effectively say, as a producer, I want to record this. At the other end, when they received a message that said that this material has gone into, effectively gone live, so you said, I want this. When it went live, they presented the material in their web browser, so you could see it, and they also sent events off. And things that we didn't really demonstrate was actually we were spinning up. We had a Lambda listening to the event coming out of them, and we were spinning up stuff in AWS to actually access the stream and stream it to something. We didn't actually stream it to anything, but we started doing that sort of work. So that was what we did, and obviously that was all automatic provisioning of streams. We did all of it. We also thought of a lot more that we wanted to do. I said I'm an architect. I'm in the Jupyter development team. Jupyter is the media asset management system for video used throughout the BBC News. So you can imagine how the flow would be, material comes in, we notice it, we tell stuff to record it, we register that with the metadata that we've got already. No people have typed anything into our production system, and that information goes back to WolfTech. What a great system. Oh my word, there's a question.
What does WolfTech do in this diagram?
In this diagram, they would be receiving messages from the LPX API, so from receiving Nin.js messages and doing stuff on those messages.
So they're kind of a message broker.
Yeah, they're shoving stuff into their web interface for people to producers to push buttons.
They're a newsroom system, right?
They're a newsroom system, yeah. We use them as story management, so that's what we wanted to do. That's our vision for the future. So a producer just sits in WolfTech, pushes a button, says, "I want this recorded." System records it. This was what was happening when we were. What was happening there? Stuff, drawings.
Architecture.
This is what the WolfTech web interface looked like. You can see that they picked up the story. It went from here to here, and they displayed it within within their web browser when it happened, when we received a message that said this is now live. That's kind of it. We are winners. We are code howlers.
So to finish up, what did we learn? Well, that there is a business need, and I think we defined the problem well. I think that's important, and it did kind of change a little bit over time. I think the schema, because we didn't, when Arqiva got involved in this project, we were using another schema, and I remember looking at it and thinking, crikey, how do you deal with recurring bookings on this? And they hadn't thought of that. That hadn't been kind of considered. And then all of a sudden, Brendan from who's the MD at IPTC kind of popped up and said, "Oh, we've got something which does recurring bookings. Why don't you take a look at what we've done?" So I kind of spent quite a bit of time looking at it and proposed that we should switch to IPTC, and the group agreed, so we did it. And we proved that you can exchange this data without kind of humans getting involved, which is not what it is like today. So bunch of improvements were suggested. I know Mark is still emailing us every now and again with, "Oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" That's really great. Keep it coming, please. Also, what came out of it was a whole bunch of kind of future ideas, which a couple of put up there is kind of you update during the broadcast with annotations and markers, which I would say no one had thought of before. There was also a comment about additional pre-event statuses and tagging problematic content, which I have to admit, I never quite got my head around about the idea, but that's another time. So to emphasize that the RESTful API is still available. It's still there for people to use. You can go onto the DPP's website to take a look. Thank you.
Did anyone actually stream media in the end?
I think so.
We stream.
Sorry,
We stream.
Yep, you streamed. Good. So I know that, we made also available some streams as part of the, so that people could actually move and turn up streams and turn them down. So we fired them all up on the morning. And it's good to hear that somebody did it.
Thank you very much, Dan, and everyone who, team presentation. I love it. Great stuff. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to hear all about the history of mobile phones and media, and mobile phones are so important when it comes to modern day media. So stick around, hear about what Ren has to say.